It's time for Voice of Indie. Your hosts today are Beem Weeks, author, producer, and marketing monster for independent multimedia publisher Fresh Ink Group, and Stephen Gies, author, producer, composer, and publisher for Fresh Ink Group.
And happy Wednesday, everybody. Welcome to another episode of the Voice of Indie podcast. I'm your host, Beem Weeks, and this is episode number 153. 153 of them in the books. All right. And with me is Mr. Stephen Gies, my co-host. How you doing tonight, Stephen?
I'm doing great. Down here in Alabama, we've been having some beautiful weather. Just had a long holiday weekend, and we had a willow fly hatch. So we got willow flies perched all over the place. It's pretty cool. The lightning bugs are hatching, so we've got little fairy lights dancing in the yard every night. And had a full moon last couple of nights, which was real cool because over the lake, that lights up the whole lake, and it's just beautiful. So enjoying my early July in Alabama.
Cool. Yeah, we've had a lot of hot weather up here. We hit 90 plus today and 90 plus yesterday, and currently at 84, so it's cooling down a little bit. Yeah, before we get rolling, I want to send out a birthday greeting to one of our regular listeners, Lisa Greenhoe, the wife of Verwayne Greenhoe. Lisa's turning 21 today, again. Happy birthday, Lisa. We wish you the best, and we are grateful to have you in our listening audience each week. So have a glass of iced tea or whatever you enjoy on your birthday, and have a good time.
Yeah, happy birthday, Lisa. We also want to welcome a new member to the Fresh Ink Group. Our guest on the show last week, Macy Lewis, has decided to become a Fresh Ink Group member. So you can start finding her at freshinkgroup.com as a full-fledged member of the crew here at FIG. So welcome aboard, Macy Lewis.
Welcome aboard, Macy. Yeah, she was a lot of fun. Slingshot by Robert G. Williscroft, the first of 4 books in the Star Child saga. That is out now. It is good to go. So get over to Amazon or wherever you buy books and grab yourself a copy. Listeners, if you want to call in tonight or you want to throw out a question or a comment on Twitter, as we do each week, here's how you can do that.
Call 516-453-9902 right now with your questions or comments for tonight's guest, or post a note on Twitter with hashtag Fresh Ink Group in the body of the tweet, and we'll read it on air. That's 516-453-9902 or hashtag Fresh Ink Group on Twitter.
All right, we got a couple of recent releases we'd like to tout. One is an illustrated chapter book for children focusing on the issue of bullying called Daddy Yo-Yo and the Legendary Marble Tournament by Dr. Janice D. Toney. That is now out. We got a beautiful laminated hardcover edition, softcover edition. Of course, all the digital editions are available. Get out there and get your copy. She's been holding events, Janice Toney has, and doing very, very well and having to order more books very quickly. She had one the other day where she sold 15 books in less than 5 minutes.
Wow.
Pretty cool. Go for it, Janice. Got another book out. This is by Robert Mackenzie. It's The Chair, Volume 3. That's the 3rd book in the Chair series by Robert Mackenzie. It is out. You can get your copies, order it. It'll come right away, and it's doing very well. You know, we have it on good authority. Kathy Ireland likes the series, so, hey, You can't go wrong, right?
Exactly. How to Paint an American is out. That is Andrew McGregor's book about a young man who comes over from Eastern Europe and travels around the United States to find out what it means to be an American, and excellent novel. I can't tell you that enough. It's just a fantastic book. So get out and grab that, How to Paint an American by Andrew McGregor. And I am currently at work on another audio book. This one is Young Knights by Cheryl Carpinello, and it's coming along nicely. I worked on it this afternoon. We have Ethan Drew, actor Ethan Drew, who did the reading for this again. He did the reading of our last audiobook, which was Mad Max and Sweet Sarah by Ellie Collins, and that's part of her Greek mythology series. So if you're interested in that, that's a kid's book, a young adult's book. So go over there and grab that if you got some young readers. But Young Knights is coming along, and we'll keep giving you updates each week on here as we move along. But if you want some really cool updates on new books and who's going to be on this show, every week, and all things indie publishing, we have a newsletter. And if you're not subscribed to it, here's how you can become a subscription holder.
Stay on top of these podcasts and all things Fresh Ink Group with our weekly digital newsletter, new releases, videos, stories, excerpts, interviews, and more. Sign up now on the homepage of freshinkgroup.com and be the one who knows what's what.
What? All right.
I was just looking at our Fresh Ink Group channel over on YouTube and noticing we've got like 12 more subscribers. So cool.
Over on Twitter, I see Verwayne Greenhouse says, Lisa says thank you. Well, you're welcome, Lisa. Glad to have you in the audience.
All right. So let's take a quick look at the top 25 print bestsellers from Fresh Ink Group for the past week. Number 25, Operation Ivy Bells, a Mac McDowell mission by Robert G. Willis Croft. Got a Willis Croft on the list. That's the first of the 4 Mac McDowell mission books that are out so far, and they're all doing very well. Submarine Cold War thrillers. Gotta love them. Figuratively Speaking is next up. Thesaurus of Expressions and Phrases by J. Ash Looney. And that seems to be doing particularly well in India, where they're wanting to learn to speak Americanized English. A lot of people who want to do business. Next slot up, How to Start and Run Your Own Food Truck Business in Georgia by A.K. Wingler. That's one of 3 How to Start and Run Your Own Food Truck Business books that are out so far, with a couple more in the works. Next up, Shipwrecked and Rescued, The City of Bangor, the hardcover edition. That's by retired journalist Larry Jorgensen, and that's about trying to ship 240 Chryslers across Lake Superior back in the 1920s, and they never got there. What happened? Buy the book, find out. Next, Sassy Uncovers Peter Allen's Secret. That's the second in Barbara Johnson's, B.A. Johnson's series of chapter books, illustrated chapter books for young people to learn about the AME Church. Outshine, an ovarian cancer memoir, second edition by Karen Ingalls. She first published first edition in 2012, chronicling her own fight with ovarian cancer, and has since updated that with new information, new resources, a new chapter, and a lot of cool stuff. And we want to stress, too, that if you buy this book, and it's a great book for somebody who's facing it or knows somebody who's facing it, all proceeds go to ovarian cancer research. That's Karen Ingalls. Next 2 in a row, How to Paint an American, the paperback, and then above that, the hardcover by Andrew McGregor. Daddy Yo-Yo and the Legendary Marble Tournament, we just talked about. That's the chapter book about bullying by Dr. Janice D. Toney. The Autumn Tree by Isha Hassan. She's our Pakistani national who's in the United Arab Emirates, and she just won an award, didn't she, Beem?
She sure did, and it was a national award, so congratulations to Aisha.
Yeah. Above that, the hardcover edition of Submariner, 30 Years of Hijinks and Keeping the Fleet Afloat, and that's by retired Naval Lieutenant Commander Jerry Pate, with Robert G. Willis Croft assisting, help put all that together. 60 chapters, true stories. It's a great memoir. It's been doing very, very well, getting great reviews. You know anybody who's got any interest at all in submarines, naval history, any of that stuff, this is a cool book. Just a cool book all the way around. Next 2 slots, As We Remember, A History of the Women's Relief Corps in Beaufort, South Carolina by Dr. Najma Thomas. The paperback is outselling the numbers are the same. They're listed above each other, but the numbers are the same. The hardcover and the softcover are selling the same for As We Remember. Above that, How to Teach Driving, Behind the Wheel, Lesson by Lesson, the Instructor's Edition by Kenneth Lindquist. We also have a Parents Edition of that book out there. So if you know some young people who are learning to drive or have recently learned to drive, you want to help them get better at it, that's a good book for that. And if you want to be a driving instructor, it depends on where you live and what the requirements are in your jurisdiction, but this book, the Instructor's Edition, should help you prepare for all of that. Above that, Sassy Discovers the AME Church. That's the first book from B.A. Johnson. American Agony, The Opioid War Against Patients in Pain, the paperback edition by Dr. Helen Burrell. That's a look at the politics of what's going on right now with the opioid crisis in the country and cracking down on doctors and stirring up some controversies. Above that, the paperback edition of Daddy Yo-Yo and the Legendary Marvel Tournament by Janice Toney. Now, this brings us to our top 6. In the top 6, the number 6 slot, The High Road, Memories from a Long Trip. Who's that by, Beam?
That's by Mark Herndon, the former drummer of country superstar group Alabama.
Yeah. That's we published that in 2016. Here we are 7 years later, and it's still making our bestseller list virtually every week. Now, top 5, the number 1 and 5 slots of the same book. The hardcover is in the number 1 slot. This is The Chair, Volume 3, 7, 8, and 9 by Robert McKenzie. So in the number 5 slot is the paperback edition. The number 1 slot is the hardcover. People, this is like a 600 and something page book. It is not inexpensive. And the hardcover, of course, costs that much more. So people are spending top dollar to get the hardcover edition of this novel as opposed to the soft cover. So those of you who think that you don't want to have a hardcover edition of your novel out there, we've been seeing so far for all of 2023, hardcovers are tending to outsell the soft covers on fiction. So figure that out, and when you've got it all figured out, send us a memo, would you? So that leaves us with 2, 3, and 4. Number 4, Submariner, 30 Years of Hijinks and Keeping the Fleet Afloat, and that's the paperback edition by Jerry Pate. The next one above that, the paperback edition of Shipwrecked and Rescued, The City of Bangor by Larry Jorgensen, about those 240 old Chryslers that never made it to Canada. And then in the number 2 slot, and I'm enjoying seeing this, How to Start and Run Your Own Food Truck Business in Florida by A.K. Wingler. That's the first of the food truck business books, and so far it is the one that is performing a little bit better than the other 2. So congratulations, everybody, on the top 25 print bestsellers from Fresh Ink Group.
Fantastic. Yeah, congratulations, everybody. Now, listeners, those of you who may remember here a few weeks ago, we had George Dismukes on, and he released his Paradise, My Prison book through Vella, and that's our first foray into Vella. Well, George called me this afternoon, and they're turning Paradise, My Prison into a movie. In fact, he was starting to write the screenplay for it this afternoon. So congratulations to George on that, and I look forward to seeing that. It's a cool book, cool story, and I think it will translate well onto the big screen. Also,
now this is not new territory for George either. He's got a long history working in the movie industry, writing scripts for John Wayne movies and stuff. It's like, wow. And
he wrote the dialogue lines for Festus Hagen on Gunsmoke back in the day. So he's got a lengthy history, and that's where he got his start. Before he started writing novels, he was writing screenplays. So. Congratulations to that for George. Now look for Dave Hooker, Off the Hook Sports, with a book that takes a look at the 98 Tennessee Vols National Championship football team. So that'll be coming out here before too long. And The Dying, the first in a trilogy by Maureen Howard. The Dying is a novel. It is set back in the early 70s, and it covers stuff going on in Vietnam and what it was like over in Europe at that time, and a really interesting book, so keep your eyes and ears open for that. And we're going to play the Paradise, My Prison commercial right now, kind of in honor of Mr. Dismukes.
Now on Kindle Vella, Charlie Flint awakens from a deep sleep and finds himself alone on a tropical beach surrounded by a palm tree jungle and exotic animals. He cannot remember who he is or anything about his life. First, he must find food and build shelter and protect himself from hidden dangers. As his memory gradually returns, it reveals what a very flawed person he is. A man who made too many mistakes, made too many enemies. The implications of the truth are staggering. How did Charlie get there? And will he save himself? Paradise, My Prison is the riveting new suspense thriller from retired Hollywood scriptwriter George Dismukes. Published by Fresh Ink Group, Paradise, My Prison is on Kindle Vella with 3 free episodes. Paradise, My Prison by George Dismukes.
Find your favorite show in the Voice of Indie archives on YouTube at Fresh Ink Group, StephenGees.com, BeamWeeks.com, freshinkgroup.com, and on Spotify. And now, you can listen on iHeartRadio, Google Podcasts, and tune in. Just search The Voice of Indie, all one word.
All right. Now, that Kindle Vella is still running for 2 more weeks or approximately, so get over there and check that out. You can read the first 3 chapters for free, and then if you're a new Vella user, Amazon's giving a couple hundred credits that'll help you buy most of the rest of the chapters of the story as well, so check it out. And if you do check it out, make sure you give it a thumbs up. So far, it's up to 61 thumbs up. And it's I have it on good authority that author George Dismukes is noticing these thumbs up because I have an email for every one of them. Hey, we're up to 57. Hey, look at that. We're up to 58. Hey, we're at 59. So, George, congratulations on 61 thumbs up so far. But we're going to see if we can get a couple more in there before this thing runs out in a couple of weeks. And then we're going to publish the book, and it'll be in wide release. So, everybody check out that Vella. It doesn't cost anything to go check it out. And like I say, those thumbs up sure make one guy happy.
Indeed. All right.
All right. So, let's meet today's guest. Her name is Alicia Butcher Ehrhardt. A voracious reader, Alicia has always intended to write fiction and now retired, dedicates her whole life, when not spending time with her husband, family, and community, to exploring the concepts of integrity in relationships and the psychological questions of why people do what they do and make the choices they make, including their life partners. She has devoted the past 20-some years to learning to write to the standards of the early classics she was steeped in, as she believes that messages in fiction must be surrounded by the utmost in quality entertainment, and that fiction is the most powerful tool we have for slipping through the barriers we put up around our hearts and our minds. As a writer, she's published traditionally in short story. She's been featured on Wattpad, where her story Too Late has received 67,000 reads, and where her debut novel, Pride's Children, Purgatory, was serialized and currently has over 20,000 reads. When she's not writing, you can find her enjoying the gardens in her new retirement community, or singing, or riding her Airwheel S8 around the campus in the Greenway in Davis, California. Welcome to the show, Alicia.
Welcome.
Hi there. Hello. Is it okay if I say happy birthday to Lisa too?
Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah.
Okay. Happy birthday, Lisa.
You know, not to make too fine a point of it, but I heard you sing. You know. So Alicia, so where are you from? I mean, have you been where you are now all your life?
Where am I from? That's. I will give you the short answer. I was born in Glendale, California. When I was 7, my parents moved us all, myself and my sister Jackie, and one baby on the way, to Mexico City to be close to her parents. When I was 19 and had been at the National University of Mexico for a year and a half working on a physics degree, there were student riots. I'm a foreigner. I don't get involved in things. They sent me up to the United States, to Seattle University, where I finished a degree in physics. After that, I moved to Wisconsin, Madison, Wisconsin, for graduate school. In Wisconsin, I met my husband. He was my sailing instructor. He also happened to be a PhD candidate in nuclear physical chemistry, and I was a PhD candidate in nuclear engineering. So we hit it off, and we got married while we were still in graduate school. Then moved to Columbia, Maryland, because we worked for the Johns Hopkins Applied Physics Lab, both of us, in Laurel, Maryland, for 3 years. Then I went to work for Princeton University in New Jersey. And Bill came from New Jersey originally, so it wasn't that hard to get him to move back to New Jersey. He found a job across the river in Pennsylvania. Thank you, Bill, for coming with me. And we lived there for 37 years. 3 kids, 37 years. And then we retired to California because I always wanted to go back to California. I don't like muggy, and unfortunately, New Jersey and all the whole East Coast in the summer are muggy. So that's it. That's my short story.
Well,
I've been around.
So now you're in Davis. What is an Airwheel S8?
Yeah, I was curious about that.
Imagine a hoverboard with a stalk in the center that has a bicycle seat on it. That's an Airwheel S8.
Oh, I've seen those. Okay, yeah.
You have?
And
Okay.
and you tool around campus on one, huh?
The interesting thing about it is that you have nothing to lean on and nothing to hang on to. So people sometimes accept the explanation that I run it by my mind. Other times when they're a little bit more interested, I always offer the opportunity to try it out. It's basically operated by shifting your center of gravity, very, very tiny amounts. So if you lean slightly forward, you go forward. I call her Maggie because she's made out of magnesium alloy. She has one job, to keep us both vertical. Think of a seated Segway. That's the kind of technology and batteries that we have. And she's my legs.
Wow. That's pretty interesting.
I'm going to want to see some video at some point, just saying.
There's a really cute little video on YouTube, and I'll dig it up and give you a link. But it's really easy because I'm just sitting on this. When I'm sitting on it, my eyes are at about the level of other people. I'm about as wide as a normal person. And I can match the pace of walking perfectly by just shifting that center of gravity a little bit. So you can't really tell that I'm sitting on something unless you're paying attention.
Cool. We'll have to check those out.
Yeah.
And you know what I did? I got it because for my 70th birthday present, I wanted one, and I told myself if I didn't get it, I would regret it the rest of my life. And I could always say that.
Yeah, well, that's cool that you're still interested in trying new things like that, too.
Oh, yeah. I'm the biggest ham on the planet. Anytime I'm out and people look at it with the big saucer eyes, they get a demo and any questions answered. And if they're really brave, they get a chance to try it.
Cool.
All right. Now, as Stephen read in your bio, you're retired now. So what did you do? What did your job entail while you were working?
Well, when I was working, my training is, as I said, nuclear engineering, which is the fusion side. So I worked I had two jobs. The first one was at Johns Hopkins Applied Physics Lab, and I worked as part of their team for supervising Navy programs on submarines. And this included, I can't remember if I had 3 or 4 of them, but this included going down to Cape Canaveral and working with a submarine crew for 3 weeks, supervising tests and writing the report for the Navy. Then after that, I went back to my original training and got a job at Princeton University's Plasma Physics Lab, where I did computational physics between the experimentalists and the theoreticians, matching theories and data from the big fusion experiments. And then in 1989, at a physics meeting in Anaheim, California, I caught some kind of a virus, lost the ability to do everything, and I've had chronic fatigue syndrome for 33 years, so I retrained myself as a writer.
So you weren't interested in writing as a kid then? This is something that got interesting to you later in life?
I read everything, but the plan was do the physics first, and then when you retire, write murder mysteries. Well, it didn't quite go that way, but I did, as soon as I was able to, spend time learning to write, because you have to learn. Oh,
yeah. So when you were young, like when you were a kid, what kind of stuff were you reading back then? What did you like?
Everything I could get my little hands on that was in English, because most of my reading years as a kid were in Mexico, and English material was a little harder. My parents had the great books. My godmother and Aunt Nana gave me a Nancy Drew every year for my birthday and one for Christmas. You know, it's interesting because I found that a lot of women scientists of my generation they remember Nancy Drew. They read Nancy Drew. Nancy Drew did things other girls didn't do.
Yeah, my mother's not a scientist, but she was a big Nancy Drew fan when she was younger, too. She read all the books.
I probably had all the ones that were available for sale in Mexico. I don't think I ever stopped and made sure that I had a complete set. And my mother gave my books away when I left home to go to college, so some of my cousins have them.
Oh, wow.
I don't know where they are. I'm not sure that they would be readable right now in quite the same way that when I was a kid, but that's the background. That and Huckleberry Finn in the original, and Dickens. My grandmother had been a teacher, so she had these big fat anthologies of English literature and American literature that they use for high schools and colleges. Do you know those?
Yeah.
They have fiction, they have excerpts of novels, they have poetry, and she had about maybe 5 or 6 of them at her house, and that and National Geographic's reading material. So I did a lot of reading.
Wow. So I think we need to play a couple of commercials here, don't we, Beem?
Sure. All right. We are on the air with Alicia
Butcher Ehrhardt.
Yeah. Well, I'm trying to text you here something, but I'll throw that out here. We are going to do this. I wanted to say this before we do the commercials. Alicia, you mentioned working with submariners, and I just texted to Stephen, we're a magnet for submariners. We've got a few of them.
I think that's why I mentioned that job.
That's just it's,
one of the few women who has been on board a British submarine for a launch.
Wow, that's a distinction.
Yeah, I had never spoken to a submariner until we started doing this show, and now they're coming out of the woodwork.
Or out of the water.
Out of the water. Yeah. All right, so we are going to...
Out of the con tower.
There you go.
There you go. All right, so we'll go ahead and do something from Robert G. Williscroft.
Now, the Star Child trilogy by Robert G. Williscroft is complete. In Book 1, Slingshot, 3 scientist-engineers reach for the stars as they blend their skills with a host of skilled colleagues to create the world's first space launch loop. A team of young eco-terrorists will go to any length to halt the project. One woman is determined to scoop the story, reporting events to a watching world. Slingshot ranges from Seattle's financial district to the ocean bottom off Baker Island to the edge of space and across the vast panorama of an equatorial Pacific. It's a love story, a gender bender, and a mystery about a missing aviatrix, a conspiracy, and a true believer. It's about high finance, intrigue, heroism, fanaticism, betrayal, and humanity's surge into outer space. In Book 2, The Star Child Compact, an international team ventures to Saturn's moon Iapetus to verify it really is a derelict starship. They discover the founders, descendants of the starship's builders, who arrived in our solar system 150,000 years ago. Together with the founders, the explorers advance founder science with momentous implications for the entire solar system, paving the way for a joint push to the distant reaches of the galaxy. But a Persian caliphate stowaway sabotages the mission, hoping to destroy science that he believes violates Islam. The Star Child Compact blends tomorrow's science with human foibles, fears, beliefs, and political intrigue, speculating on how civilization might develop while traveling on a generational starship, and how modern humans might interact with remnants of that civilization. In Book 3, the Iapetus Federation, besieged Israelis on Earth make their way to Mars as the Federation expands throughout the solar system. While global jihad rages on Earth, putting millions to the sword, the Star Child Institute develops wormhole transportation. But will this new technology be ready in time to rescue all that is left of the United States, the beleaguered Lone Star Conservancy, and remnants of other cultures around the globe? From hand-to-hand combat in the oceans, to battles on Earth's surface, to struggles in interplanetary space, our heroes fight to survive and expand to the far reaches of the universe. Robert G. Williscroft is an adventurer, polar explorer, deep-sea diver, nuclear submariner, scientist, and best-selling, award-winning author. His stories portray the accurate science and precise engineering that appeals to hard science fiction buffs. But the Star Child trilogy is for everyone who loves an epic tale, a grand journey by men and women who loom larger than life as they work, play, and love. Make the Star Child trilogy your own with individual hardcover, softcover, audiobook, and all major ebook editions worldwide, or collect the entire set for one epic journey by Robert G. Williscroft, The Star Child Trilogy.
Submariner, 30 years of hijinks and keeping the fleet afloat. Jerry Pate's semi-autobiographical collection of 60 stories recounts his 30 years in and around the U.S. Navy submarine fleet, ranging from lighthearted to wrenching. All are poignant inside looks at naval operations rarely seen by outsiders. Topics include the real story behind the shuttle Challenger tragedy, risking his own life underwater, discovering a Soviet spy living across the street, surviving when an engine ignites, critical missions, and the everyday lives of men and women of the fleet. Compiled by author Robert G. Williscroft and proudly published by Fresh Ink Group. Submariner is available worldwide in hardcover, softcover, and all ebook formats. Dive into Submariner for hijinks and breathtaking adventure with this poignant memoir by a true American hero.
All right.
60 chapters of memoir there, just full of stories and getting some great reviews. So definitely check that out. We're on the air now with Alicia Butcher Ehrhardt, author extraordinaire, and somebody who likes to gad about town on her flying machine. Alicia,
we talked
a couple of days ago.
Just a second before you go to the next commercial. I want to hit this on Twitter, or next question, because this is kind of timely here. Robert G. Williscroft on Twitter, he says, a pleasure to listen to a fellow scientist. You had a wonderful scientific career. So I wanted to get that in there before we move on.
Okay. You got a Verwain one as well. I've read the entirety of Paradise, My Prison. I sincerely enjoyed it and recommend it. Yes, that's the one that's over on Vela right now by George Dismukes. What I started to ask was, Alicia, when we talked the other day, you mentioned that you are a liberal, Democrat, Catholic, which is sometimes a little bit of an oxymoron. Why don't you tell us about that?
Well, Catholic by birth, Catholic by rearing, and Catholic by choice since. It's my church, and they're not going to kick me out by being too reactionary. So some of us have to carry the banner that we still would like sometime in the future, serious consideration of women priests, that certain other things that some of the more reactionary Catholics hold dear are not necessarily true, and that women basically are just as good as men for a lot of stuff, better for some things. Mm-hmm. So I'm also quite liberal because if you look at any of the Gospels, Jesus was probably the most revolutionary person of his generation. And those ideas still hold. Take care of the vulnerable, take care of the poor, visit the people in prison, try to get everybody reintegrated, love everybody, don't hate people. So, that's not that hard to stick to.
Well, I'll give you an amen there.
Okay.
All right.
So you also are dealing with chronic fatigue syndrome, and how does that affect your writing career and everyday life?
Oh, God, that is probably the most significant thing that I battle every day. I have about a teaspoon of energy, and it has to last for everything. If I overdo it, I'll be crashed for days. I don't think I've ever heard anybody else use Sudoku as a measure of brain speed. Have you?
No.
If I can do a hard Sudoku in 6 minutes or fewer, the brain is on. I block the internet and get to work. If it takes me 14 to 21 minutes or more to do a hard Sudoku, I give up for a while and take a nap, and we'll try again next time around. But I have very little usable energy. I have this project that I've been working on since 2000, Pride's Children. I want to finish it. I've got 2 of the volumes published. And if I don't stick to task and work when I can, this is never going to happen. So I have developed ways of dealing with that lack of energy. And I mean, you can ask all the questions about process that you want, but I have a goal, and the goal is to finish what I started. Didn't think it was going to take this long, but there it is. And I deal with the lack of energy, the pain, a host of other side effects. If you know somebody who has long COVID, for example, there's an overlap. There's about 200 symptoms that we have, and 95% of the long COVID and the chronic fatigue syndrome symptoms overlap. So all of these people that, if we didn't know what virus they had gotten sick from and not gotten well from, they would be diagnosed with what I have. And there's millions of new people since the virus hit us.
Now, this chronic fatigue syndrome, you had mentioned that you had picked it up from a virus of some sort. Was this just like suddenly, like you woke up one day and there it was?
Yep.
Or
Anaheim, California, for the annual meeting of the Division of Plasma Physics, American Physical Society, to present a paper. Okay, this happens 1 week every year. You get the APS meeting, you go present a paper and talk about it. I came from Princeton. That was a good place. I had a paper to give. By the first day of that week, I had a raging fever. When I got back to New Jersey, my doctor had antibiotics. They didn't work. You don't do antibiotics for a virus. This is 1989. They didn't know very much about it. They haven't learned that much since. And I basically lost the ability to stay awake. I lost the ability to do physics. I lost the ability to do computational physics. I lost the ability to keep large computer programs in my head. And that was the end of my physics. So I haven't had it since. It doesn't come back. We are really hoping as a community that the research into long COVID is going to help all those people who have these mystery illnesses, these invisible illnesses, the post-viral syndromes like polio and Lyme, long COVID, and myalgic encephalomyelitis, which is what they now call chronic fatigue syndrome. But I figured you'd know the unpopular name more.
Mm-hmm.
So it's just, if you get sick, you have a virus, your body does not recover.
Wow.
And there's not a damn thing you can do about it. Yeah. So that's life. I have a purpose for the rest of it, and I'm just trying to use the little bits that I can grab where my brain works and do my writing.
Cool.
Well, you've got 2 books out, so which we're going to get to here in a little bit. So I mean, you've got that working for you, which is fantastic, and hopefully you do get that 3rd one out as well. We do have a caller on the lines. We take that call. Let's go to the caller. This is Dr. Helen Burrell. Hello, Dr. Helen.
Yeah, guys, you forgot about my CFS book.
Yeah. No, we decided to let you tell.
I know all about that illness. I wrote about it many years ago. It's published. The other name for it is myalgic encephalomyelitis. And by the way, it's an immune system disorder that we still don't know the cause of. Could be toxin, could be virus, could be bacterial. We don't know. But I wrote the whole book 30 years ago, and the facts are still the same. Yeah. So, and I had the illness for a while, but I learned how to cope with it. What I want to ask the writer, I hope she can manage with the ME. Again, what is your writing process, especially when you're dealing with the overwhelming exhaustion from ME?
Okay. This is going to take a couple of minutes because what I have is a process that compensates as much as possible for the deficiencies. The deficiency is mainly that I can't hold that much stuff in my head at a time. It has sort of evolved into I can do a scene at a time. So I'm an extreme plotter, I don't know if you've ever heard of a screenwriter program called Dramatica, but that's what I do my plotting, and I like to describe it as you build a skyscraper high by putting a solid steel structure in it and making sure that all your utilities are connected before you ever go around putting interior walls on the separate offices or apartments and decorating them and setting them up for their purpose. So my process before I start a book, and I've done it twice and I'm in the throes of trying to do it the third time, is to make sure that every major plot point, every character is set up in the structure before I get started on the writing. Then when I get to writing a scene, I work in a linear fashion, first scene, second scene, etc., and I work at it until it's 100% finished, and I don't go back. So it has to fit into the structure when I'm done with it. I take everything that I have set aside for that scene, and I have thousands of words of notes for every scene that I have. Everything, I have a little piece, I stick it in the appropriate bin until I get there. And then I read just everything that's related to one scene until it plays like a movie in my head. And then I start figuring out how to write it. But it's the size of a short story. So instead of having 150 scenes in a book, I have 150 short stories. They have to have a beginning, a middle, and end, a purpose, all of the things that you take for granted in a short story. And they have to connect to the previous scenes and have their spot in the structure to be the next step for the end. I've managed to do that all 23 years for the books that I'm writing on right now. It works for me. I don't know anybody else who works that way.
It's very exhausting. What do you do when you're in bed and you're thinking of your writing?
Excuse me?
You want to repeat?
Helen?
I missed the last bit.
Helen,
you want to repeat that?
Oh, I said because of the illness, the myalgic encephalomyelitis, when the exhaustion occurs, you have your planning, and do you write when you're in bed, or you don't? When you're
I can't.
Trying
to. I have to have my mind as on as it's going to be, and that's what I use the Sudokus for, to measure my brain speed. And as long as I have an hour or a couple of hours with the brain on, I'm writing fiction. When that goes, I can't. I literally cannot write if I don't have a brain. So I don't write. I don't write in bed. I sit at a computer. Fortunately, I can sit up. Not everybody can do that. But I stay at the computer until whatever I am doing on that scene today has exhausted whatever little bit of brain power I got today. And then we're done. Maybe the next day I'll write, maybe the next day I won't. But I'm ready when it comes along because I know how rare the pictures are.
It takes a great hero to write when you're sick,
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
So congratulations.
Thank you. And I think Stephen told me to mention this someplace in there. Both of the books are on sale for 99 cents on Amazon as a result of the first library talk that I had, which was last Sunday, and this is my first podcast. So I left the books on that price, so anybody who wants to try them out can try that. And
all right, 99 cents. It's a good price.
Yep. So we're going to play a couple of commercials, and then we're going to talk about those 99-cent books. And Helen, thanks for calling in. You had about 10 in a row that were pantsers, and finally you found an outliner.
Hey, you got all wish me a happy birthday. I just had a big birthday.
Well, happy birthday.
Right. Happy birthday, Helen.
Thank you.
Happy birthday.
I'm continuing to listen. Bye.
All right. Okay. Thanks.
Bye.
So we got a couple of more book trailers.
All right.
A grand epic saga by Robert Mackenzie. The Chair series spans centuries, touching the lives of 22 generations of related mothers and daughters, their stories witnessed by a simple pine chair. Resolute, strong, loving, and fiercely protective, these women must strive to pass their values to new generations in a world of racism and sexism, politics, scandal, fashion, even the rise and dominance of baseball. They live in privilege and poverty, with faith and despair, relishing every moment of love, even as they suffer abiding grief. Volume 1, Lightning, Thunder, and Glory, spans the 1600s through World War I, while Volume 2, Faith, Hope, and Love, follows these women's descendants into modern times and beyond. In Volume 3, 7, 8, and 9, the chair flashes back to pre-Civil War America, featuring a woman from the Second Mayflower, her daughter, the black market Irish lace importer, and a Canadian World War I fighter pilot. A blend of history and philosophy told through satire and parody, the story of the chair could be found in some old trunk in any dusty old attic, but Mackenzie breathes it alive with riveting tales that span the real and the imagined. Proudly published by Fresh Ink Group, the Chair series by Robert Mackenzie is available worldwide in jacketed hardcover, softcover, and all ebook editions.
Managing pain with opioids is a science. Except politics, money, and overzealous law enforcement are denying American patients the relief they so desperately need. Demonizing the best pain reliever we have leads to needless suffering, even suicides, and it drives the rise in deadly street drugs. Helen Burrell gathers and presents the evidence, the intimidation, the raids of clinics, the chilling effect on those very professionals we trust to care for our loved ones and ourselves. She looks hard at the Veterans Administration, Drug Enforcement Agency, Department of Justice, and the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention. Chapters include the Suboxone hoax, the wrong arms of the law, and the epidemic of death. Now in hardcover, softcover, and all ebook formats, American Agony is proudly published by Fresh Ink Group. Read American Agony now, or you might be the next one hurt.
Ooh.
Yeah.
My favorite reference in the chair commercial is the black market Irish lace importer. I mean, you don't get more gangsta than that, do you?
Yeah. Yeah. All right.
So we're on the air with Alicia Butcher Ehrhardt, author of 2 novels so far in the Pride's Children series, working on the 3rd one. And we're still taking calls. If anybody wants to call in, the phone number is 516-453-9902. And, of course, you can post a note over on Twitter with hashtag Fresh Ink Group in the message, and we'll read it on the air. So, Alicia, why don't you tell us about your Pride's Children series, and then we'll go into great detail on the 1st and 2nd book.
Okay. That, you know what, when you write something that's big and fat and intended to be as long as Gone with the Wind when you're finished, which the trilogy is now. When I started, I did not think it was going to be that long, okay? I wasn't even sure it was going to be 3 books. But it's really hard to say what is your book about, because there are so many things that you want to talk about. I have a little thing that I put together for my the website for the books. It's prideschildren.com. 1 word, no apostrophe, no spaces. I'll just read you a few pieces for that. How's that? Will that work?
Great.
Yeah.
Okay. I have a tab called The World of Pride. This being Pride Month, that's kind of interesting addition, because there's one other book called Pride's Children on Amazon. I picked my title long before they picked their title, but they published first, and you can't copyright titles. So I went over there and checked it, and it turns out that Pride's Children by, I think it's Evan O'Connor and another writer. I don't have the thing here for me, but it's a very lovely story of 2 men who adopt 2 children, a gay couple who adopt 2 children. And to tell you the truth, I am delighted to share my title with that kind of a book and those kind of people. So the fact that you can't copyright titles actually worked out quite nicely. And I don't think their readers are going to think that my readers want their book and vice versa, but it wouldn't be a bad thing if it did. So that was the title. But Pride's Children is in the tradition of realistic novels. I want you to believe that this could happen. that there aren't unbelievable or there are improbable events, but there are not anything that couldn't actually happen. It's meant to be an immersive experience told from right behind the eyeballs of its three main characters, a way of living three different lives. Before it's over, it'll range from New York City to parts of Ireland, the Czech Republic, and the foothills of the Himalayas in Uttar Pradesh, India, in the years 2005 to 2006. And that's a little critical because the laws in Ireland, for example, which are part of the background of the story, were very different in 2005 and 2006 and have only been changed recently. They had some of the most restrictive rules about marriage and children and things like that in Europe up until not that long ago. Okay. It's not for everyone, as several reviewers have mentioned. It's not for the impatient. The single story will take 3 volumes, mostly because of the limitations in the size of a single volume printed by Amazon's on-demand system for Realtree books, which is about 600 pages. There's more action than you realize when you start, but most of the trilogy's length comes from narrating exclusively from the point of view of characters. You live behind the eyeballs of 3 characters, and they take turns telling the story by how I decide I want a particular scene to be told, because each scene is told from the character that it affects most. But it's not by chapters. It's by scenes. Usually I alternate every scene. Sometimes there'll be 2 or 3 in a row from the same point of view character. It's set in the world where Hollywood and the worldwide entertainment industry, including Bollywood, intersect with some of the creators of what ends up being called content, the writers, and the very different people that involves. But mostly it's about people, some of whom should never have met. It's about the pervasiveness of chronic illness. It's about obsession, and it's mainly about integrity. Who has it, who doesn't, and what that means to the children. So that's the best I can do for what it's about without giving you a plot summary. The plot summary is, I think, more boring. It's just people doing things and meeting each other. And as I said, some of these people should never have met.
Well, that's an interesting line right there. I find it intriguing. People who should have never have met. I've got a history. I've got an ex-wife that, should have never have met.
It's not in that sense. Trust me, it's not in that sense. The sense is in people's lives don't always intersect.
Okay.
Okay, and very few universes, alternate universes, if you're a science fiction fan, will those people find themselves in the same place at the same time and meet each other. So in this sense, the first book starts with one of those intersections, which is when my writer character, Carrie, is invited to a talk show in New York City. She never does these things. And the reason she doesn't do these things is because she shares my illness. She's much younger. She's not a Mary Sue. She has her own life. She's an ex-physician, not a physicist. But she is sick. She stays home. She writes well-received historical novels. That's what she has done with her life. Somehow or other, this one late-night woman talk show in New York City gets her to come to expend some of her very precious energy and to come on the show. And you find out fairly quickly why, so I won't tell you. But she gets this writer to come on Night Talk, which is the name of the late-night talk show. At the same time, the Irish actor, the rising Irish actor of his generation, the other guest. So people who never would have connected in any way happen to meet. That's how we get started.
Cool.
So basically,
I forget what the question was.
Well, I think you answered it.
So the 2 that are out, tell us the titles again so people know how to look for them.
The 2 titles, Pride's Children, Purgatory, and Pride's Children, Netherworld.
And both of those are 99 cents right now for how long?
Right now, for the ebook. Probably until the 12th, maybe longer if there seems to be some interest. I'm not a big fan of putting things at 99 cents because people who buy things at that price don't always read them. People value what they pay for. Plus, when you take 15 years to write a book, you kind of find that a little irritating. So they're normally $9.99 for ebook, which is the most Amazon will let you charge as an indie for an ebook. As I said, the 600 pages, big fat books. People reliably tell me it takes 11 and 12 years to 11 and 12 hours, to read these two novels. So you get your money's worth.
Yeah, anything I work on for 15 years, I like to think it's worth at least $1.50,
Yeah.
So what will be the title of the third one that you're working on right now?
Pride's Children, Limbo.
Limbo.
And there's a very good reason, because I left everything. I really love the end. Don't go ahead and peek, but I really love the end of the second book of Netherworld. And I have left such a gigantic mess that needs to be sorted out and fixed and everything decided for the children, because that's what limbo is, not knowing what's going to happen, not knowing how you're going to be able to deal with it, not knowing if you're ever going to get out of there.
No. So we need to roll another set of commercials, and then we got a few more questions for author Alicia Butcher Ehrhardt, author of the Pride's Children trilogy, third book still in progress. And still got a little bit of time to call in. If you want to call in, 516-453-9902.
Yeah, and before we roll the commercials, we've got a couple of comments over on Twitter from Robert G. Williscroft. He says, my heart goes out to you, Alicia. I admire you for working and writing despite your illness. And then he says, by the way, I outline my novels and write them in a manner similar to you.
Good.
There you go.
Thank you.
All right. So we are going to run a couple of commercials here. And this one is for food truck. You want to run a food truck? This is how you do it.
With good jobs so hard to find, especially in rapidly expanding Florida, owning your own food truck could be the best option. It's the least expensive startup, and you can be fully operational in mere months. The rules and regulations can be a bit complex, and no single source has offered all the answers. Until now. How to Start and Run Your Own Food Truck Business in Florida by food truck veteran A.K. Wingler is the step-by-step guide that takes you from good idea to great success. Sure, it's hard work, but exciting, mobile, flexible, and highly profitable. And you get to be your own boss and set your own hours. Proudly published by Fresh Ink Group, this book tells you how and where to make money in this exploding independent industry. Grab your copy in laminated hardcover, glossy softcover, or any of the major ebook formats at retailers worldwide. Even if you're just curious for now, this guide is the best way to discover if a food truck business is right for you.
When Aaliyah and Kehlani go from having fun to tussling, Big Mama puts it to rest, as fighting and bullying are plain wrong. Later, Big Daddy tells the girls about the photo of a man on the mantle. His name is Daddy Yo-Yo, he says, telling the girls about his late grandfather, who watched out for all the children in his neighborhood. Daddy Yo-Yo and the legendary marble tournament is about a group of boys having fun until Evil Eye Bucket Smith tries bullying his smaller rival, young Chucky Fry. Daddy Yo-Yo won't stand for it. He knows that looking out for kids also means teaching about pride, self-worth, and caring for others. From Fresh Ink Group and author-educator Janice D. Toney, the illustrated full-colored chapter book, Daddy Yo-Yo and the Legendary Marble Tournament is out now. Grab and share your copy in hardcover, softcover, or all ebook formats. Find out who the real winners are as we all learn the wisdom of Daddy Yo-Yo.
All right. Fantastic.
And that book is now out in full release. Daddy Yo-Yo and the Legendary Marble Tournament.
And it's a cool book for kids, and it teaches about bullying.
Here.
So.
Say it again, Alicia.
I like the line about somebody watching out for all the kids.
Yeah, definitely. So, Alicia Butcher Ehrhardt, how is it that you publish? I'm looking at Trilka Press. Is that your company or somebody you work with? How does this all fit together?
Everything on Purgatory is me. I did everything. I was going to have some help, and it just never happened. So every single thing that went into that book, which is 589 pages or something like that, wow. I did as an indie. Learned to do these things, and I had the best time. I did the cover. I did the interior formatting. I picked the font. I got the trim size. I did every single detail because I figured I should learn those things, and I didn't know when I was going to end up using them or not. But the interesting thing about that is most of those things that I needed to learn to publish a book, to write and publish a book, I detailed as I went on my blog. So a lot of those things, I still go back and look at how I did something because, you know, the last book was finished a couple of years ago, and it's been a while since I organized one, so I just go back and read my own posts. Those were put up for the benefit of other people, but I used them to go figure out how I did something.
Okay,
so
now
you did the cover for Purgatory?
Yes. Every single thing I learned to use a lovely little program. I've always wanted to learn graphics. Okay, I always wanted to learn graphics, and I had a mentor. J.M. Nay Grimm writes fantasies, and I loved her covers. I asked her, you know how indies are very supportive of each other and are often helpful. I asked her if she would just supervise my efforts in that department and take a look at things as I put things together and created them. And she was very kind. We spent a summer doing that in 2015 before I published the first book. But she was an exacting taskmaster. She is really picky, and I love her for that. I loved her covers, and she just, every time I sent her one, she said, yes, but you know, your two things over here aren't lined up exactly the way you need to. Back I'd go to the drawing board. So I've always wanted to learn graphics for that. And I figured, hey, if you're an indie writer, you get to do everything if you want to, and I want to. Took a while.
All right. Yeah, I mean, that's that whole indie community. It's kind of helping each of us helping each other out, and that's why we started this podcast.
Mm-hmm. It's wonderful.
Now,
it's really kind of you.
Now, you had spoken earlier about doing your first ever library reading, and I see you've got some reviews on your books. What kind of fan reaction and feedback are you getting from these two novels that you have out right now?
What kind of reviews do I have? Oh, I'm a bit of a niche writer because most people who write mainstream literary fiction, contemporary fiction, are looking for a traditional contract. And many of the readers who read those novels that come from the traditional publishers don't like to consider indie. So I'm doing something that most of the indies don't do. Most indies many write nonfiction, but many also write science fiction, fantasy, romance of various kinds. And there aren't very many of us. I think our group on Facebook is 15 or 20 people. But I like the freedom to do what I want. I know that traditional publishers are looking for the best sellers, and they don't always accept everything that comes. I think they publish 2 or 3% of the books that are submitted to them. I had tried that with the mysteries when I first started writing, didn't get very far. I just got these, thank you very much for considering us. Please send us your next one, after you wait 6 months for them to get back to you on a submission. I didn't think that partly my illness and partly my brain could take that kind of pain again. I wanted to do it my way. It worked for me.
Yeah, I'm in the same boat. I've never submitted to an agent or to one of the big publishers. I love the working with Fresh Ink Group, having complete control over my own work and doing, like you said, doing it your own way. You know what your story requires, and that's. I think indie it's not just the future. I think indie is the now. This is where it's at.
It's a big responsibility, though. Think about that.
Yeah. You have a lot more invested in it than just writing.
Right. You are responsible for everything. You asked about my aside from Amazon. Trilka Press is my logo, my printer, my name if I need something to put on the book. I designed the logo. I designed the books. I put a copyright notice. I believe in registering copyright because my work takes so long. I can't afford to not have a copyright on it, and it's been very handy when Amazon said, well, you have 2 days to prove you own this stuff. But doing all those steps is, you don't have to depend on other people. And I'm not a very dependable person. I never can tell you when I'm going to be well. To be on this show, I had to take an hour-and-a-half nap before and time it just right so that I would be semi-coherent when you talk to me. If I start fading towards the end, that's what's happening. The nap has worn off. But I like being in charge. I'm horribly opinionated and very picky. So I work well with indies.
Well, I think those are good qualities, personally.
Yep. Oh, yeah. So, go ahead. I'm sorry I interrupted.
No, I was just saying, you said you're opinionated and picky. I think those are great qualities to have.
Okay, and I'm also flexible because when I finished Netherworld in March of 2022, the writing, and then I had surgery planned for September, and I just could not get the formatting and the cover done. So I asked a lovely person, you probably know him, Bill Peschel of Peschel Press, who has been a friend online. I've never met him. He's in Pennsylvania. He and his wife have the press. I said, I really need somebody to help me do the cover and the formatting. Are you interested? Or do you know somebody who might be? And he took it on. I insisted on paying him properly because I wanted to be able to be a nitpicker. And we're still friends. So he had the model of the first one. He had my sketches and the licenses for the photos that I had purchased. And he did the cover as well as I could have, possibly better, and certainly faster. So you're flexible as an indie, and if you've learned to do everything, you know how to get somebody to help you do it when you need it.
And recognize quality or lack
exactly.
of. Yeah.
Yep.
Well, it sounds like you've got some good advice for authors. I was about to ask you if you've got some more. You've just given us 4 or 5 good ones. You got anything else?
Yes. I'll give you my favorite piece of advice for authors. Find out where you are on the spectrum between pantsing and plotter. And the reason for that is I've heard pantsers say that once they know where the end of the story is, they're not interested anymore. That's one extreme. The other extreme is people like me who have to have everything assigned someplace before they even start writing. I call myself an extreme plotter. I use a screenwriting program. Someplace in between there, most writers are going to find what they are. And they should be looking for advice from people who write books about writing and who give advice who match what they are. Because I followed a pantser for the first 2 or 3 or 4 years of my writing career, and it was a disaster.
Wow.
I'm not a pantser. I couldn't do it.
Yeah.
And I don't like the books. I won't tell you who it is because I don't like the books that he writes because they have plot holes in them. They might have spontaneity. He loves doing them. He's been doing that forever. He's very popular. I'm not going to tell you who he is, but I could not copy how he worked. If I'd figured that out sooner, I might have shortened my learning experience. So that's what I tell people. If you're writing fiction, figure out where you are on the spectrum and try to get your advice from the people who will help you.
That's good advice.
Yeah, I've not heard that before.
Yeah.
Right.
So
nobody else is my way.
Yeah.
So Alicia, how can people contact you? Are you on social media, blog, website, Facebook, Instagram?
I'm on Facebook, but it's a personal thing. So just look at if you want to follow me as a person, just look for my full name on Facebook. Send me a note. Please send me a note when you send a friend request so that I know why. Otherwise, I have 2 blogs. One is Lieb Jabberings, LiebBeerings. I'm sorry, it's hard, but it's Liebja, long story, Jabberings, so that it's my writing personal blog, and on the about there is a contact email address. Or simply read something in comments, and I will get back to you because as you've probably figured out by now, I love talking to people, and I answer every comment that's made on the blog eventually, usually quite quickly. So if we get into a conversation and you have any questions, we'll take it to the offline if that's what you want. The other one, the easier blog, is prideschildren.com, and they're both WordPress blogs because those are easy for me to do. So people can contact me. I'm out there everywhere. I'm out there with my full name, and I always use Alicia Butcher Ehrhardt. Long story behind that one, too, if you have a couple hours. But I try not to say anything online that I wouldn't say to a person standing right in front of me.
Okay.
And that's a good reminder.
Yeah.
And it's sometimes difficult. Many times I will write out a comment and then delete it after I read it because I needed to get it out of me. But it's not really something that I would want to say in public to another human being, so I don't. But you can find me there or on my blog. Just Google my whole name, and you will find a dozen places where I've been.
Yeah, great. Okay, thanks.
I don't do Twitter, though. I don't do Twitter because I can't.
No Twitter.
It's too fast.
Okay, we've been talking to Alicia Butcher Ehrhardt, author extraordinaire. Both of her first 2 novels are 99 cents right now, so get over there to Amazon and check those out. And I also want to announce those of you who are not followers of StoryEmpire.com yet, you need to be. Get over there to StoryEmpire.com, click on the blog, and today you have by me, Stephen G's, Part 3 in my Point of View series, How to Finesse Point of View When You're Writing Fiction. That's StoryEmpire.com. And speaking of StoryEmpire.com, another member of StoryEmpire.com, C.S. Boyack, is going to be our guest next week. And then who we got after that, Beem?
And after that, we've got Maureen Howard. We are publishing a couple of books from her coming up here real soon. So tune in for that and find out all about Maureen Howard. After that...
After that, we've got Kim Bachelia, who's an author I'm not familiar with yet, so we're looking forward to learning more about her. Then after that, we have a return visit from Mr. David Carroll. He's the NBC anchor down there in the Chattanooga market, and he's got some really cool books. We've published a couple of them, and he's a fun guest to listen to. He's got some funny stories, and he's got some brushes with the famous people and all that, and so tune in for that. All right, and then we've got one more commercial to play on the way out, and this is for As We Remember, about the Women's Relief Corps of Beaufort, South Carolina. Everybody, we'll see you next week, and thanks for being on the show, Alicia.
Thank you, Alicia.
You're welcome, and I second the sign up for Story Empire.
All right. Yeah, thanks.
Right. Bye, everybody.
Bye.
Goodbye. Bye. Thank you.
As We Remember documents the remarkable story of a Women's Relief Corps chapter in Beaufort, South Carolina. The WRC is a national organization established as an official auxiliary to the Grand Army of the Republic in 1883. A Women's Relief Corps post has existed in the city of Beaufort in various forms since 1892. While much of the record of the early Buford Corps was passed through the esteemed oral history tradition, in 2019, members commissioned a study to ensure their story would be documented in print form and told for many generations to come. That story centers African American women as lead agents of change and co-creators of the patriotic spirit, an important theme given that historically the national WRC was primarily white-led, and in southern localities like Buford, completely segregated. Beyond documenting the members' experiences, this story is compelling in the larger context of our nation contending with changing notions of its national identity and definitions of patriotism. Written and compiled by Najma Thomas, Ph.D., and proudly published by Fresh Ink Group, this fascinating history is available in all ebook formats, or grab your keepsake edition in full-color softcover or laminate hardcover, or listen to the audiobook narrated by the author. As we remember, a history of the Women's Relief Corps in Beaufort, South Carolina.
You've been a part of Voice of Indy, a production of Fresh Ink Group. Spread the word, support our guests, then find us at freshinkgroup.com and be sure to hashtag Fresh Ink Group.